Last week he'd finally had her walking, first using a walker that embarrassed her to no end, then finally a cane. At least with the cane she could use it to threaten him when he pushed too hard. She let a small smile escape as she recalled how she'd whacked him across his shoulder 2 days ago with the cane. He had been adamant that she was not ready for this trip, that she could not possibly get around in the mountains by herself. "Like hell I can't," she said out loud. Cheyenne moved from the window to the space between the seats, standing on the console and nudging Jake with her wet nose. "I know, girl. About there." Most of the land along Cumberland Pass was public, but there were pockets here and there that were privately owned. Her own cabin sat on just 2 acres, but it was surrounded by the national forest, and when she stood on the huge boulders and surveyed the mountains around her, she felt like she owned it all. She downshifted into low as she made the last climb, finally stopping at the small wooden gate that marked her property. Cheyenne danced excitedly, urging her to hurry. Opening the door, she gritted her teeth, knowing that the last 3 hours of driving without a break would have taken their toll on her leg. Using the cane to support herself, she gingerly straightened up, putting more weight on her injured leg. She gasped as the pain shot through her and she gripped the cane tightly. The pain passed as it always did. For probably the 1,000th time, she wondered if she'd ever fully recover. If not, well, she could either accept desk duty for the rest of her career or take the disability package and retire. She looked around her, breathing deeply the fresh smell of the mountains. If she didn't love her job so damn much, she'd take the disability in a minute. But once she did it, that was it. Wasn't like she could go back into law enforcement after that. No one would hire her. And at 38, she was a little young to retire up here and hide out in her cabin. She'd turn into a bona fide hermit before she knew it. She liked being alone too much to turn out otherwise. After taking a few steps, being careful not to trip on a rock, the feeling in her leg returned to somewhat normal. She grabbed the padlock, inserting her key and turning, listening for the click that was about to open up her world. She swung the gate open, then hobbled over to secure it so she could drive through, knowing she'd just have to do it all over again when she stopped to close it. She'd close it and lock it, and, finally, after nearly a month of being waited on by nurses, she'd have complete solitude. She and Cheyenne. They'd only been together 2 years, but they'd bonded like no other dog she'd ever had. She often wondered if Cheyenne could read her thoughts. She had no doubt the dog understood her spoken words. A high-pitched bark urged her to hurry, and she laughed. I know. She crawled back inside and drove through the gate, stopping once again to close the gate and lock it. Cheyenne was nearly dancing by the time she got back inside. She ruffled the dog's fur, then sat still as a wet tongue swiped at her cheek. She drove on, curving to the right as a tiny road was nearly swallowed by the forest. Just a short distance later, her cabin appeared. Here we are, Cheyenne. The small cabin looked like it could have easily been built in the 1800s. It was as rustic as it could get and still have plumbing and electricity, and that was why Jake loved it. Of course, when she bought it, there wasn't plumbing and electricity. She'd made do with the old outhouse and hauling in water, but that soon got old. So she spent a small fortune on a well and having electricity brought up the pass. But the other renovations, like the new porch and the added bedroom, she'd done herself. Mostly. It was just a 1-room cabin when she bought it. Now, 11 years later, it had a separate bedroom and bathroom and a real kitchen. The original part of the cabin was now entirely a living room, with one whole wall composed of a rock fireplace and nothing else. She opened the back door of the Land Cruiser and Cheyenne bolted out, nose to the ground as she sniffed around the cabin. Jake walked slowly to the porch, taking the first step with difficulty. Using the cane and the handrail, she pulled herself up. She felt nearly disgusted with her inadequacy and had to push it aside, knowing it would pass. But she was impatient. She paused on the porch and looked back at the Land Cruiser, wondering how in the world she was going to unpack it. Very slowly. Well, she had nothing but time. A slow smile formed as she stood on the porch.